Hello, my name is Rex Knickerbocker, and I am creating a community platform, something akin to Match.com for finding what community you ought to live in. And I have a few basic theses that I'm going off of here. And the biggest one is that in order to convince, let's say out of 10 million people we're able to find with an algorithm the 100 best fit, best friend material for you. How do we convince them all to move to a similar geography to you? That's one of the theses that I have, is that geography is important for community. Talking over the phone and virtual reality and the metaverse, it has merit, but it's not the same as physically being available and being able to respond, and also being able to walk over to your neighbor's house and see what they're up to if they're working in their backyard, and help them out and chat. Or in their garage building something, you could just walk over there and see what they're up to. Geography is important. Walking distance from your best friend's house is better than driving distance, and it's better than a 5-hour or 10-hour flight, even if we do have technology and we get to call at any time. So just because there's a lot of those best friends of yours that may not be into getting on the phone every time they'd like to speak with you, they might just want to gauge how you're doing without the phone or the internet. So in order for me to convince those 100 people out of 10 million, that's 1 in 100,000. 1 in 100,000. We find the best out of 1 in 100,000 and we do it 100 times for you. How do we convince them to move to a similar geography to you? You're going to have to be mobile. We're going to have to convince you and all of them to be willing to move around a few times before we're able to get you all into the right community. So I'm building communities, physical, geographical communities, where it's as easy as I can possibly think of and make it to be willing to move. And to me, that's a huge thing, to try and get people to be willing to move, because moving, in my experience, is not fun or easy. So there's a few things that hold people back. Job. If their job is not a remote work type position, then they might have to stay where they're at unless they can have a lifestyle where either they don't need a job or any finances at all. So the zero cost of living is what I'm targeting. And that might sound crazy, but we can earn money. That's not a problem. But having your basic needs be covered by your participation in this community is what we're targeting. And that is to be done by having your food source be right out your front door, having your clean air, clean water, organic food, so you're healthy and you live in a community. The way we are planning to do this is to have greenhouses that are climate controlled, so tropical paradise inside of a greenhouse year round, even though the outside of the greenhouse could be any temperature, and using geothermal heating and cooling technology, low tech. Not a lot of things can break. We're just pulling water out of the ground, running it through some radiators to take the heat or the cool, depending on the season, and then putting it back into the same aquifer and using a large aquifer underground to just cycle the water, take the heat out of it in the winter, replace the heat in the summer. Or you could think of it taking the cool air, the cool temperatures from that water in the summer, and replacing those in the winter simply just by passing that water through the open air in the winter to cool it back down to maintain the temperature of the aquifer at whatever level we're choosing and whatever's feasible. So that's low tech. We're talking a couple pumps. We're talking some deep wells, an injection well, which means the water goes in, and a well where we pull the water out, which is a typical regular well. And just radiators inside these greenhouses and some fans. The greenhouses will be built with dirt backfill on the walls, so the front of the greenhouse you'll be able to drive up to, park a car there under a carport, remove the front wall, it'll be easily removable, remove the plastic covering of the front wall, and park an RV inside of it. Recreational vehicle is a big trailer home, basically, but not huge that you can't move it. So it's something you can move with a pickup truck and or bring a tent. The climate's good. You'd be growing a garden in there with probably hydroponics or something that is easy for you to do. I like hydroponics and I like permaculture, so either of those are great options, and the community will help each other learn how to grow their own food. But with modern technology and robotics, it's not a hugely heavy intensive activity to grow your own food for a family of four, as long as you've got friends that can help you set up the watering systems and you're not worried about weeding, because taking all the weeds out of the garden. If any of y'all had gardens when you were younger, that's kind of how we tried to keep them pretty, was remove all the weeds from around the plants, and that is a lot of work. Permaculture deletes that, and hydroponics deletes that, and that is really nice. And then having drip irrigation if you're in the permaculture, and or I'm not educated enough about permaculture, but I know there's other ways to water where it's extremely hands-off, and you just basically pick the food that you want to eat and make adjustments throughout the year to plant placements, and there's only a small amount of maintenance for that type of a system. So if you have your food, and a small amount of electricity is all that's needed as well, so a few solar panels. Many of the solar panels that you're going to use would be attached to your RV, and only a few would be staying with the greenhouse. And you would not be tied to that one greenhouse. You would be owning a share in a collection of greenhouses. The vision here is to build basically an organization that is distributed throughout the entire Earth, the planet, every landmass that we have, build some communities in each area, and then have the participants that want to find their community, their 100 best friends out of 10 million, and they'd like to live with those best friends, then those people will be part of the community initiative. It's called the Community DAO, Distributed Autonomous Organization. That is the organization set up for the purpose of helping that happen. And people that don't want to participate in that, we are still attracting them to come and incentivizing them to participate in that by giving a 75% discount on the assets, real estate greenhouses that they reserve through the system. And the way you pay to reserve in this system is not with money, it's with points. Points are like dividends on stock. So, or if you're a farmer, you've got land, and that in our system is called stake. not the land, but in the blockchain. If you relate it to a farmer, the farmer has a limited amount of land and it doesn't change year over year, but he gets fruit year after year. He gets yield year after year. The land relates to stake. The points relate to the fruit or the yield. And every year you would use those fruits, and then once they're used, they are pretty useless for the same purpose that they were used. They can't be used that way anymore. So the dividends, if it's shares of stock, then it earns dividends every year. Those dividends are the only thing that are allowed to be used to reserve in this system. So only owners can participate in the auction of who gets to live in which greenhouse, and we ensure that there aren't more owners than there are greenhouses, so everyone still has a place to stay, but it gives us the chance to incentivize those people who ought to be living close to you to try and convince them to do so, to move to a geography where they are more understood, they're more at peace, their community is more compatible with their current life state, their current energy, their current frequency, their goals, their family status, how many children do you have, how many, what types of activities do you like, different things that hopefully the community DAO will be able to somehow incorporate into creating that community for you. And the way I'm defining that is basically like best friend material. So people that would be your best friend if you ever got to meet them. They would be better than your previous best friends before you entered this program, or not program, but anyway, before you started on this journey to find your community. Let's say your best friend was a 20% compatibility compared to your 10 best friends that you have now, which are 80% compatibility. That sounds like what I would love to see in the future for this project. And so that's a brief introduction. There are a lot of things that I've been thinking about to get to where I'm at today on this design and on this model. And it really came from me stepping away from the corporate world. Right out of college, I spent a few months working regular job and didn't like it, didn't have to do it, stopped. I just lived on investments and tried to figure out what was worth, try to figure out what I ought to do. In a sense, the way that I process things, I think of it kind of like marinating, like you marinate meats before you cook them. That's kind of how my soul and my spirit goes through questioning of trying to come to a conclusion. That's just how my brain and my spirit work. So that's what I entered. I just entered that. It was pretty indecisive for a long time, and also the only indecisive part about it was I didn't know what to do with my time that I would feel good about, that I would feel actually needed to be done. And that might sound crazy, but couldn't think of anything for years. And I got to a point where I said, what I really need is community. So I decided to travel, and I traveled not enough to find my community, but enough to realize that I should probably just build it. And if you're going to solve it for yourself, might as well solve it for everybody. And because of the network effect, that's the only way to solve this. So in order for us to get people together that mesh well, that harmonize, that support each other, that I like to think in music terms for how this other aspect is going to work. What the algorithm's output will be personalities and energies moving around, and each community will have different personalities coming in and going out that are beautiful. Just like a song has different notes and instruments playing together and coming in and out of the song frame. And that's what I am hoping is an artistic blend of personalities and desires that just creates something beautiful. It's like the community is a growing, living plant or song or painting or whatever it is that's so artistic. I am not the biggest artist, but I have a great appreciation for it. I was an engineer in school, not an artist. But I do think that those are the people that we need to really put their soul into the algorithm. And of course, we need to make sure that they're directed properly, because there is ugly music and there is art that's not pleasing, and it's still art. It is still an experience, and I'm not opposed to experiences, but I want to have nice experiences going forward, at least for the next few centuries. So we're trying to build something good, peaceful, and productive, and fulfilling, and creative, and fun. And there are opposites to all those experiences. I just think we've been living them too long, the opposites, and we need to start living creative, beautiful lifestyles, and with people that we really can't live without. Okay? I want that, and I want to make it so that the basic needs are taken care of on a hyper-local level, like the individual family takes care of all of their basic needs, because the greenhouse takes care of the climate control. Excuse me. The greenhouse takes care of, with their help, the family's help, the food. And gosh, what else is there, if you're living in a community that you love and you don't have to worry about freezing to death, getting rained on, your shelter's taken care of, your food's taken care of, internet's not too expensive, we'll probably solve it for everyone in the community. Electricity also is not too expensive when it comes to you're not using a ton of it. You're living in an RV, you're boondocking in the most perfect place ever. There's food there, and there's climate control there, and your RV could have a leak and it wouldn't matter, because there's no leaks in the greenhouse that are going to ruin your RV. So you're never going to freeze your RV. You don't have to winterize. Everything just works out in this. And RV stands for recreational vehicle. It's basically just a trailer on wheels, and you pull it with a pickup truck, or a motorhome. This is the plan, and I'd like to do it all over the world, and I would like help. Yeah, lots of help. I am building the platform so that people can onboard their properties and get rewarded for doing so, and then it's that's called the Asset DAO, DAO. The Asset DAO is the one that is managing. Right now, I'm building it for managing these greenhouses, but it is for all useful assets that someone would want to pay to use or reserve. So that could be anything: cars, planes, art, I guess. If someone wanted to pay to reserve art for a time, they could do so. So all assets will fit in the Asset DAO, and the Asset DAO will have a relationship with the community DAO where the community DAO is able to provide incentives to people who are willing to do their community. It's like crystallization, kind of, if you think of material science, and maybe have you ever seen those sugar crystals or salt crystals? It's like salty water and you put a string in it, and the different materials come together that are similar, and they separate from the materials that are not similar. It's a refining process. Anyway, I've gone on too long, I think, but I could go on more, and I will. You'll see me again in other further events and videos. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you'll consider joining this project and helping us move it forward to the point, to the effect that the sooner the better we all get to have our wonderful communities that just get better and better every time we move. That's the plan.